Everyone knows that politics isn't working. Everyone can feel that the country isn't where it should be. Tonight could, just could, be the turning point. From here on, I will give everything I have got to make it so, to ensure the name Makerfield is forever synonymous with bringing about the change this country needs. Bringing back something we've lost, hope. Hope for the future. I am proud that this place has shone in the world's spotlight these last 5 weeks. And the warmth, humour and hospitality of its people has been on show for all to see. It will never be a stepping stone to me, but instead will be my touchstone. A Makerfield test at the heart of British politics will ensure the places Westminster has neglected will now get fairness. I spoke in the campaign about the need to change politics. I promised to lead by example from the front as your Member of Parliament. I know people who traditionally vote for the Conservatives, the Liberal Democrats, the Greens, and perhaps more recently, in May, for Reform UK, have given me their support in this election. I will always have respect to them for that, and out of respect for them, I will always take a place first rather than a party first approach, and I will focus on problem solving rather than point scoring, and I will work hard after this by-election to heal the divisions of this campaign, and let it be really understood that I will be your MP however you voted.
This is what Keir Starmer had to say on the results.
It's really important to put the achievements that we've already achieved into context, because when I talk about stabilising the economy, when I talk about bringing waiting lists down and getting migration down, I'm talking about projects like this. I'm talking about people who need houses, businesses that need to thrive. That's what drives me every day. I was elected here to serve my country with a mandate that we secured at a general election 2 years ago, a very considerable mandate for change. We are carrying out that change. A lot of what we've achieved, people told me wouldn't be possible. If we'd sat here doing this interview at the general election 2024 and you'd put to me, in 2 years' time the economy will be stabilised, in 2 years' time waiting lists will be coming down, in 2 years' time migration will be back under control, in 2 years' time we'd have had the EU in the relationship we've got, and in 2 years' time reform would be on the run and the tide would be turning, I would have said that would be a very good place to be, but that is the place we are in.
Stan, are you going to be involved in a leadership contest or not?
Well, there isn't a leadership contest at the moment. There isn't one at the moment. But as I've said on many, many occasions, I don't think that's a good thing for the country, to plunge us into chaos. I would also add that now that Andy has won, which is really important, really good, he's a huge asset to us, then now will inevitably be a Manchester mayoralty by-election starting straight away. So it's important that we pull together for that. But if there is a contest, just to be clear with you, then yes, I will run, I will stand, and I've said repeatedly I'm not going to walk away from that.
Let's also hear from Nigel Farage.
Well, the Makerfield by-election was a dramatic, emphatic win for Andy Burnham, with a vote share that nobody could quite see coming. In many ways, he's a popular local mayor, just as Boris Johnson was a very popular mayor in London just a few years ago. But what really happened here is it was vote Burnham, get Starmer out, which of course was our campaign message leading up to the locals on the 7th of May. So we were slightly hoist with our own petard. As for the Reform vote share, well, I thought we'd get 18,000 votes. We got just shy of 16, so I'm disappointed by that, no question about it. But I would say this, there's a couple of thousand voters there who would normally have gone out and voted Reform, that voted Restore. And I would say directly to them, what do you want? We are the challenger party to the left in this country, and I would urge you to think again. I really, really would.
This is what Green Party leader Zach Polanski had to say on their campaign.
The important context is that Gorton and Denton was our 125th target seat in the entire country. This was the seat that was in Manchester. So in some ways it was wild that we were going to campaign there at all, but we knew we could win it. So we went for it, and spoiler alert, we won it. Yeah. Makerfield was passed off 500th seat. So there was a big reason why we made a strategic decision not to campaign there, and actually to allow the campaign to play out exactly as it is. But I do just want to pay testament to anyone who paid any attention to our amazing candidate, Sarah Wakefield, who, yeah.
Now, it's not a British election without Reform acting like sore losers.
My question was, what went wrong for Reform in Makerfield? And I mean, are you saying nothing went wrong? You didn't say this is what went wrong. Did nothing? Did it go right?
Let me repeat. This is a safe Labour seat.
No, you've said no. You've said that already. That part you've already said, Mr. Tice. No, I don't want to get. I don't want to get bogged down in things because you have. No, it's not 10 questions. I'm going to be really clear. Very simple question.
I'm being very clear too. It's a safe Labour seat, and I've answered your question.
Okay. So my question was, normally when we get political parties on, when they've had a defeat, there's a moment for reflection, and often people like me ask, "What have you learnt about your own party because you didn't win?" And I'm curious as to what your answer to that is, not whether Labour was a safe seat. That's my question.
And the answer is, this is a safe Labour seat. They were always expected to win with a high-profile candidate. We were always the underdogs. We fought a very hard campaign. Of course, we'd have loved to have won it. Our reflection is that there is only one party that can beat the hard socialists currently in power, and that's Reform. I mean, if you look at the other parties on the centre-right, between them they got 9%. So if people want change, if people want Reform, then you've got to vote Reform. It's as simple as that.
Richard, there's no such thing as a safe Labour seat. That's major cope. So, Curtis, what are your thoughts on the election results?
So I thought that it was the best results we could probably hope for. Of course, the Greens couldn't win the election. Everyone understood that. But the reason why I think it was the best result we could have hoped for was because if you combined the Reform and Restore vote, they didn't get enough to usurp Andy Burnham. So that tells me there was no vote splitting on the right, and the right-wing vote did not hold up. Robert Kenyon got 35%. A lot of the polls were showing that it was neck and neck, and Kenyon was only behind a couple of percentage points. But it was encouraging to see how little. Well, I can't say little vote share. Reform still getting 35% of the vote is still important. It's still a big move, and I don't subscribe to the idea that Reform are completely finished. That's not the case. But national polling, I find it interesting. Is national polling just out of whack? Because Reform have been number one in national polling for a long, long time. Yeah, they've lost the last 3 elections. They've in Makerfields, obviously they lost that one. Plaid Cymru, lost to Plaid Cymru, and Gorton and Denton. So maybe it's loose cable. So this hasn't held up for Reform. Yeah, it's probably just a loose cable. Again, apologies for the tech issues, but yes. So I'm pretty happy. I think it was good to see Sarah Wakefield. She still stood. She was still on Question Time. She had debates. And there were a lot of people saying, the Greens got like 300 votes. They lost 4%. But also look at the Lib Dems. They only got 200 votes.
But also the Greens knew that they weren't necessarily, like they weren't going to win. And they didn't kind of put in an awful lot of effort.
I think we knew
so it's, 100%.
Yeah. But people laughing at the Greens, but it's clearly tactical vote happened because the Lib Dem vote collapsed too. It's not like the people dislike the Greens. It was just simply the fact that everyone knew the Greens couldn't win.
Do you think a lot of why Labour won was obviously, again, because Andy Burnham was specifically the...
Yes. I mean, I think polls show that Andy Burnham would have won in Gorton Denton if it was him. I don't know if you picked this up earlier, but me and Callum went to Makerfield and we saw that there was no typography of the Labour Party on any campaign literature. It was just Andy Burnham. He's obviously still a popular guy. His personal poll ratings did drop before the election, but I do think that maybe that was just overblown. But still, Andy is very popular in the area at least.
And I take it when you went to Makerfield last week, the people that you spoke to kind of out and about, you feel like their comments kind of reflect the result in the end?
The thing with Vox Pops is it's on any given day, you'll get a spread of certain people. For me and Callum, we were almost desperate to find more Labour voices. It was all reform and restore. So again, we couldn't really tell. I mean, if you go to a specific day, into a specific area, you can't gauge what's really going on the ground. If you would base the election on placards, reform blew everyone out of the water. Obviously, it doesn't mean anything. But again, like reform and restore specifically, they're a Louds minority.
Right, I think maybe it's time to bring in the rest of the panel, if you're all ready, guys. Hello!
Hi.
Oh, look at us all. What a team.
Dreamy, dreamy.
So I'll
the mics
open
are
it out
sounding
to
much
the
better as soon as we've
floor.
all split.
Say again, Lewis.
The mics are all sounding better now that we've all split into different.
That's because I've been manually controlling one of them, which is currently turned down to keep the echo away.
Producer Cal for the night.
If I turn that up, we will have the echo again, I think.
So, in terms of election results, we've obviously just got Curtis's thoughts and feelings on it. Does anybody want to take the floor first and also share their thoughts and feelings?
Shall I go first?
Yeah, go, Sarah.
Everyone will add something really, really amazing to it afterwards. But I think it's, look, Andy's won. Well, hey, good. I don't think he had much competition around him. I think what concerns me the most is that I think Andy is a vibes-based guy. And I was having this conversation with Anseka that he is just vibesy. I don't actually think he's rooted in anything tangible. And that's what concerns me the most about him just now entering back into Parliament and into politics as a whole. Like, yes, you were mayor. Okay, and then now you're actually going to be held to account a little bit more now that you're in you have a constituency, you're now being Parliament, and we all know that the reason why you ran in the first place is because you do want to show up to Starmer. Do I think Burnham sounds more human than Starmer? Yeah, I do, but I think that making those comparisons is almost unfair. Labour have lost their base because Labour have failed so much again and again and again. So whether he has political strengths, I think, is something that we'll have to wait and see on. But what I don't want to see when it comes to Burnham, and I'm not even a massive Labour fan, is that he is wavering on policies, because that's been Labour's failure, I think, in the recent election that they won. So I don't know, we'll see. I think when you get rid of all the excitement that's surrounding Burnham and like, oh my god, yes, like Burnham's just won against someone who was talking about eating Carol Vorderman's like arsehole or something, like something awful like that. I don't really think there was much there, to be honest. But he still, to me, is a Labour politician whose whole career was forged in the new Labour era, and he served in governments that embraced privatisation, marketisation, and all the things that I think have made people's lives a lot harder. So if you overlook that, if you overlook the incessant inequality that's now rampant in Britain and say, oh, it's great that Burnham's now holding a constituency, then I think we're doing ourselves a disservice. He has often positioned himself to the left of Labour's current leadership, which makes him slightly popular, but he's never like fundamentally challenged, I think, the economic system that allows wealth and power to concentrate in the way that it does. So until I see that, then I might be like, go on Andy Bandy, but I doubt it. That's my take.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm just going to go around the screen. So Ben, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the problems that one of the problems that we have as the left is that Andy Burnham is perceived as a lot more left-wing than he actually is. And that is potentially going to come round to bite us again, because I think there's something a little bit Keir Starmer about him, and that's quite worrying. He's a much better speaker than Keir Starmer, don't get me wrong. He's clearly much better at winning elections than Keir Starmer currently. But he said phrases like bringing about the change that we need. And it reminded me of that old, the change that we need is the change that we will bring about, or whatever the quote is. And Starmer's sort of campaign where he had change written behind him. It's like, change into what? Like, are you going to talk about, renationalizing bus services? Sure. Let's talk about local renationalization. Let's talk about community supermarkets. Let's talk about nationalizing oil and gas. And we've got none of that. No green industrial revolution, nothing like that. And it is leaving them open if they don't sort of step into the breach with that. But we can sort of get more into that because there's a story from Aberdeen that kind of links to that with the Conservative victory in Aberdeen. Now, I think that the problem, more so than being anything we can comment about Burnham, is last night was a problem for Reform. I think Reform are the real losers in this this whole story, because Reform are now being attacked from every side. They have their elderly vote potentially being swept up by the Tories if the Tories can replicate their success from last night in Aberdeen. They've got Burnham and a sort of new vision of Labour coming in to eat their vote, and they've also got Restore Britain taking their far-right vote. It's like there's a lot of people who voted Reform and would vote Reform who now potentially will be, eaten off by other parties. And for the first time, really in the last few years, we've seen like a resurgent Conservative and Labour Party that we haven't seen for some time. And I think that should be a worry for people who are thinking of, who are hoping for change in the system, really. But generally, it should be a worry for Reform. Reform have had a really bad time. They've lost several by-elections in a row now. It's really not good. It's not unexpected entirely, but it's really not good. I don't think that Andy Burnham is really a lefty, but on the speech, or rather in the speech, his victory speech that you showed there, I don't think he's a lefty, but to be fair to him, he did have such bad audio there. I did wonder whether he was maybe able to win me over.
Is that an audio dig there?
Is that a dig at us?
Yeah, no.
I'm fucking dead. We're
trying, all right, Ben? Go.
Yeah, bloody hell.
More money behind him than we have.
Yeah.
True.
Lewis, should we come to you next?
Sure, why not? I think he's just going to offer like more centrism. I think the signals have already been laid for that, right? He's going to potentially keep Shabana Mahmood as the Home Secretary, but he's also so many people have gone towards like the centrist approach over the years as things have got worse around the world. It's like Macron's probably the most like famous leader for it, right? Continuously trying to make appeals to the left and the right, and then just completely thinning the margins of where parties are moving to, where the centre just gets essentially pushed out. And we keep seeing results in different parts of the country and even different parts of the world in America where actually if you do progressively move more to the left and do it in the right way, then you're, almost guaranteed more success. The one thing that I always like to push when it comes to like, especially the polling plus mixed with the results, is that it's still pretty consistent. If you look at almost every election and average election over the last few years, is that over 50% of the country are still voting for, well, people will argue with me on this, left-leaning parties. Now, people might obviously argue about how left Labour is now and say they're a right-wing party, but their voter base are still like somewhere in the left. And we still consistently meet the 50% threshold in the average votes across general elections, across council elections, local elections. People want lefties in power in this country, at least to a certain degree. And it feels continuously annoying how people aren't leaning into that more, and they'd rather go for the centrist approach. I don't see any actual pathway currently that Andy's going to offer that is actually going to lead us to forms of public control of the utilities that he's talking about. It doesn't seem like he's got any actual proper plans for that I've seen. I was just checking before as well, just because it was like topical to the week, if Andy Burnham's ever commented on like Palestine action and what's been happening with that, and he's left no comment. He's been very careful on it. It's almost like, again, very Starmerite with certain things, as he was like coming into power, not just as the leader of the Labour Party, but also into leadership as the Prime Minister. There's so many things that we just don't know what he believes in or what he stands on. He's been given, I think, quite a light ride up until this election. Like he's been on the trail and he's been asking questions here and there. But have we had like any actual really good comprehensive interviews where he's fully sat down and he's had like a really challenging journalist actually, say to him, explain everything that you want to do? I haven't seen him being pushed or challenged. I feel like a Starmer-esque type person has been pushed back into a position of power. But again, that's if he becomes Prime Minister. And we don't know if he will. I've been looking, as I mentioned in the last show, that the Labour Together spending has been ramped up over the last few months. So I wonder who they're going to be back in. But we'll see. It just feels like everybody who is kind of running or says that they're going to be running, they're just going to be offering some form of centrism, and nobody's learnt the lessons of the last few years. I'm sure everybody heard quite a few weeks ago, maybe about a month ago, like the Democrats finally released their they do like a breakdown of the reasons why they think they lost the last election, and they just published it a few weeks ago. Gaza didn't come up once in their analysis and their post-mortem. They didn't even mention it once in their report. I think Wes has been trying to appeal to that side a little bit, but then again, he's just doing the same thing, trying to appeal to the right, trying to appeal to the left. I don't think anybody is really in the running who's going to offer anything than a small, tiny adjustment to the system. And eventually we'll just be back in this place again, even if it's in 5 or even 10 years, if Labour manages to stay in power for another parliament or two, where the far right are just going to be biting it away at everybody's heels, and who knows what state the world and the country is going to be in by then. No one's offering the actual change that we need to significantly make a huge change in this country.
Perfect, thank you, Lewis. And Callum, I know you're multitasking tonight because you're also producing, but should we hear what you have to say as well?
Can't hear you, Callum.
You're muted.
You can.
Bloody hell.
That's because I was coughing before and didn't want people to hear it. I'm interested in what's going to happen next, and what the next few weeks or the next couple of months are going to look like, because he's done it. Andy Burnham he's won the seat that he wanted to win, and presumably there's now going to be a leadership challenge. But how is that going to happen? There's lots of talk today that Burnham's team and others within Labour would like to see a coronation, whereby Keir Starmer steps down and Andy Burnham, just with the agreement of other MPs, becomes the Prime Minister, which will obviously save Labour from having to go through all of this sort of rigmarole of having a leadership election and deciding who's going to take over and listening to all the different debates, etc., while they're also in the middle of probably fighting their lives out for the Manchester mayoral election. But on the flip side of that, Starmer's pretty much making it clear at the moment that any challenge to his leadership he will want to challenge and try and cling on, which means that there could automatically be a proper leadership challenge if that's the case. I don't envy Labour at the moment, because I think they've got a really difficult decision to make. Because if you're the Labour Party right now, you want to try and hold on to the Manchester mayoral position. You want to try and hold on to that. If you're also in the middle of a leadership election at the same time, you've then got to try and balance, well, where are the resources going and where's the attention going to be, and that might take away from them being able to win in Manchester, which is probably going to be a tight 3-horse race between the Greens, Reform and Labour. But on the flip side, if you're Andy Burnham, surely you want people to... This whole message from Burnham is change, and that he's going to represent the change. And as others have pointed out, he wants to keep Shabana Mahmood as Home Secretary. He's already talked about cutting welfare to pay for defence spending. He's talked about keeping the triple lock on pensions. He's talked about a lot of things that are pretty centrist Labour policies at the moment. and that's not really offering change. So if you're in Manchester and you're looking at who to vote for the mayoralty, and Burnham's just become an MP, but nothing seemingly, no change is coming. There's no sign of a leadership challenge. There's no sign of somebody else becoming the Prime Minister. Why would you vote Labour in Manchester for the mayoralty? You're going to look at that and you're just going to think, well, Burnham's lying out of his arse. He said he was going to come and change the party and he's not done anything. Now, I think we would all appreciate that these things can't happen overnight. Well, I mean, they technically they could, but realistically these things have to play out. But Burnham's also got to decide, does he want to challenge the leadership now to potentially win the people of Manchester over for that mayoralty election, or does he want to sit back, allow Labour to put their resources into that, and then after the fact do that? So it's all still a bit of a mess, but we all obviously knew this was coming. In terms of some of the fallout from today, it's been interesting watching Reform try to dig their way out of a hole. You know, well, I think Richard Tice this morning was saying that, you know, Labour Reform voters have even said, you know, well, you know, we want to see Starmer out and that's why we voted Labour, and Reform are now trying to run this as a win. But also, interestingly, the attacks on the Green Party for getting, what was it, 308 votes. Yeah, because they didn't run a campaign, right? They, in my opinion, they made the right decision, which was to take a step back in this. I know that there's people that will disagree with me on that. Although looking at the majority that Andy Burnham had, even if the Greens had fought a campaign, there's a good chance that Burnham would have still clung on. But yeah, it's quite funny. I mean, I don't know what everyone else thinks. It's quite funny watching sort of some of the other parties try and swing this result in their favour, even though they didn't win the election. I mean, for Reform, for example, there have now been 5 parliamentary by-elections, including the 3 that took place this week, the 2 in Scotland, Makerfield, Gorton and Denton, and Runcorn and Helsby. And Reform have only won 1 of those parliamentary by-elections, and they only won by 6 votes. So, you know, have Reform peaked? Perhaps.
Do we think Burnham is going to be different to if he in future contest? Do you think he might pretend to be like Starmer, but he's not?
I don't know, like when I don't know, because when people, people are like, okay, well, it might be the future, like the future. I don't understand what future people are envisioning with him. It's one of the things we just have to wait and see. What I do know is that him winning has to be taken seriously, and we should recognize that. But I don't think that he should be trusted without being questioned. Do I think it'll be any different to Starmer? I think he might be a little bit, harder than Starmer. I think Starmer's a bit of a wet wipe, a bit of a flip-flopper, and he's had all of these blunders that he could have literally avoided. But I think with Burnham, it is kind of we'll wait and see, because this is the same guy that was with, the Labour Friends of Israel, etc., etc. And I don't think that he's, again, had anything quite tangible with anything that he said. Like, he said certain things that could and should be taken seriously, but there are some things that I think he's very careful with even trying to venture into. And I was saying this on the show of Van Secker, when he went on to Question Time, and it was in Makerfield, one of the people in the audience was like, well, why don't you just say that you're getting into this by-election because you want to challenge Starmer? And he was just there like, and I was like, hello, is anyone there? Like, you need to tell us, because we know what it is that you're doing, but why is it that you're not just saying it? So I don't know, if he wants to eventually, challenge Starmer in this leadership contest, then he actually needs to answer difficult questions and be fucking clear about it. Is he prepared to confront the fact that corporate power is taking a stronghold in the way that it is? Is he prepared to redistribute wealth? Is he prepared to challenge the economic model that has failed millions of people? Is he prepared to really, really call out Israel? These are things that people are going to really interrogate him on, because what we don't want are flip-floppers and people who sit on the fence and are scared to say the things that they should be saying. So I think we should be questioning if he's going to be prepared to actually, I don't know, take the leap and have a spine. I think anyone will do better than Starmer, because Starmer is slimy and spineless.
I mean, I want to pick up on something Lewis said. You said that he's a better speaker than Keir Starmer. I don't think he's actually much better. We heard in his speech, his victory speech there. Did he say anything that was inspiring? No, he actually invoked the Starmer change just to be the change. Like, it was very boring victory speech. And that's Andy Burnham. Ironically, it's kind of hard to believe why Andy Burnham has a certain cult following, because I don't think he's that particularly impressive. When you saw him run for Labour leadership in 2015 and 2010, was he inspiring? Was there anything particularly flashy or sexy about him? No, Jeremy Corbyn came along in 2015 and blew him out the water. So I don't think there's anything about Andy Burnham. I think the quality he has is he does, and maybe a nice guy. He's done a decent job as mayor of Greater Manchester. I think that's appreciated. But I don't think there's anything particularly special about him. In terms of him being continuity Starmer, that's a given, because it doesn't matter who's leading the Labour Party. I always bring it back to this. The important thing is the Labour machinery behind these people. So someone like Andy Burnham, I personally think, is probably personally to the left of Keir Starmer. I don't think he's ideologically against nationalisation. Okay, I think he would be perfectly happy to put public services into public control. But in order to do that, you have to have strong enough principles and strong enough backbone to fight the Labour machine, which he doesn't do. And that's, to me, what Andy Burnham represents. Andy Burnham is a good politician in an era of politics in which he can almost flourish. I always say this line. I think Andy Burnham would have been a great cabinet minister under Jeremy Corbyn's leadership, because Jeremy Corbyn moved the Overton window. He was more principled. He changed the Labour Party, and Andy Burnham would be fine. But this is the Labour Party in Starmer's image. Morgan McSweeney is now back into the party. I mean, he wasn't gone for very long. It's like the Simpsons meme where they throw out Barney from the pub, and then behind you it's Barney again. Yeah, that's Morgan McSweeney. So is Andy Burnham going to go against the status quo? No. And that's what really matters. I don't think it necessarily matters what someone's personal politics is. I don't know if it's Tony Benn who coined this, but you've got weather vanes and you've got signposts. These two types of politicians. Weather vanes will go with whoever, right? When the debate and politics is good, you'll get a bunch of politicians who will go with it. In fact, when Jeremy Corbyn won, there were a handful of MPs, probably think about backstabbing him anyway, but there are a handful of MPs like, do you know what? We're going to get behind the agenda. Even Wes Streeting, I don't know if you've seen it, there's a clip of Wes Streeting and Michael Walker singing "Oh, Jeremy Corbyn," right? But that was because the conditions were a bit more left-wing. A signpost politician is, no matter where the political debate is, no matter what iteration of the Labour Party you have someone who stands up for what they believe in. So, again, Jeremy Corbyn. It doesn't matter if Labour is led by Blair or if it's led by someone on the left. Jeremy Corbyn will still fight for those policies. Andy Burnham, you don't know who's going to show up. And when he was mayor of Manchester, he was outside the Westminster bubble. Okay, so he had less pressure, he was far more effective, he was better. He's going back to the Westminster bubble, where all these pressures, where lobbying happens, collective responsibility, all these things, Andy Burnham's going to fold. And there's going to be a lot of very disappointed voters out there who supported Andy Burnham. Final thing, I think it was 41% of Labour voters who left Labour over Gaza. Not members, but voters. The biggest reason why people were disgusted by Labour once the Greens was Gaza. And there's one thing Andy Burnham won't change, is foreign policy. Expect him to maybe move to the left on domestic policy. You really think he's going to go against his lobby? He will remember the fight. And
you know, genocide's bad, but I'm a little bit busy at the moment trying to win a by-election and become Prime Minister. And it did come across like that, the answer that he gave, I'm not going to lie. You know, he said he was one of the first people to call for a ceasefire. He said that he'd worked with Palestinian diaspora, however you pronounce the word, within... yeah, thanks. Within Manchester as mayor of Manchester, and then he said, you know, but right now I'm really busy and I'm focusing on this. And I mean, there's two ways that people can look at that. You can look at that in the way that many people have taken it, which is he is basically saying, yeah, that's terrible, but I'm too busy. It's not important enough for me. Or there's the other way that you could look at it, which I think a lot of people see when they see Burnham, not necessarily political people, not like people like us who, you know, live and breathe this stuff, but you sort of your average person. I think that it could come across to some people as sensible. It's like, well, yeah, he's saying, yeah, look, I called for a ceasefire, and I hear the plight of Palestinians, but also living in the real world, I'm in the middle of a by-election for a local constituency, and the focus has to be now before we move on to the next step. I'm not Prime Minister yet. And I think one thing that a lot of the public see in Burnham, where the public see differences between Burnham and Starmer, is that Burnham comes across to many as more sensible. And I think part of that is because he doesn't necessarily nail his flag to one ideology or another, and where we say it's hard to work out what he stands for, other people see that as you know, common sense, willing to change your mind depending on the circumstances, you know, and to do the right thing, even if that means changing what you said the day before. Now, I mean, I would call that flip-flopping, but there is an element with Burnham of, you know, like take the immigration stuff, for example, and the comments that he'd made about agreeing with Nigel Farage over Farage's comments about the Home Office needing to be shaken up. There are huge problems within the Home Office. The Home Office under the Conservative Party got rid of safe legal routes for refugees to come here. Now, so many more refugees are coming via small boat. That's then created this quote-unquote small boat crisis that everyone talks about, which enrages the right wing, makes Nigel Farage popular, makes even the likes of Restore seem, you know, to some people appealing. And one of the reasons this has happened is because there's no safe and legal routes for refugees. So when Andy Burnham says he agrees with Farage that the Home Office needs to a complete shake-up, the Home Office does need a shake-up. It needs to go back to working again and to functioning again. But he says it in a way that your average voter might listen to that. And if you're a Reform voter, you might hear Burnham say that and think, yeah, no, it does need a shake-up. Now, he probably wants to do it in a way that they might not want him to do it in. But he's good at speaking to normal people that don't understand politics in a way that they think makes sense. Now, is that going to make us all better off? Probably not. Is Andy Burnham going to be this big saviour of the left? Definitely not. Will it keep Reform UK out of power at the next general election? Maybe.
Yeah.
Sarah, did you want to come in there?
Yeah, because Callum makes a great point, and it kind of goes off of Curtis's point as well. Like, I think people are banking on Burnham. I think people are projecting onto Burnham, to be honest, that the politics that he, I don't know, projecting onto Burnham are politics that he probably doesn't even represent at all. I think there is this tendency in the political sphere, particularly in Britain, where they will just project things onto them. And if someone stands slightly to the left of the current leadership, then all of a sudden they're kind of like imagining some sort of transformative figure. But like, it's kind of like what Curtis said, Burnham is not Jezza. Burnham is not Jeremy Corbyn, and he never will be. And he's not this democratic socialist like insurgent, because he is not proposing anything that's fundamentally different. And I do think that what we will see when he does eventually, if it does arise, a leadership contest happens between him and Starmer, I actually think he will just go off of the things that sound good, great sound bites, and then we will see a reflection of what's happened with Starmer, possibly with Burnham, because because he comes off as more competent doesn't mean that he will be as competent as people imagine him to be. Charisma is not going to reshape economic policy. Vibe is not going to reshape economic policy. What will is actually someone who does not sit on the fence and does not flip-flop and actually has something quite tangible. And I don't think that he has that just yet.
I think everyone's got a weakness as well when it comes to the potential leadership competition, right? Streeton's got the reputation as being a snake. Which he is, let's be honest. Andy's weakness is that he hasn't been in Parliament, right? He's probably still got a lot of his old connections. He's probably got some still good friends who are very much in the game, right? So he's got that advantage. But you've got Wes Streeting in the background. I think it was reported on maybe by the Times, maybe last year or early this year, about he's been going out of his way to get to know all the new MPs and stuff like this, and going out for drinks with them and stuff. And it's kind of so he's already been trying to establish relationships, whether he's been successful with that or not. But you've also got then I always forget his name, Al Cairns. I always forget his name. I can't hear you. Whatever his name is, you army centrist dad. Anyway, he's also brand new as well. He's still a new MP. So again, he doesn't have that establishment relationship with people. He probably may have friends in the ground. There's no one else who's really coming into the competition that's going to be that well strong and established besides Wes. But again, he's got the reputation of a snake, and who knows what Wes has been promising people in the background. You've still got powerful lobbies in place like Labour Together and other groups in the background. And we know the media. We know for a fact, I can guarantee it, that the media have been digging on stories that they're holding back on with certain leadership people, so they can throw them in there during the leadership competition to just either to cause chaos or to move things in their own preferential way. This Angela Rayner, is she going to run? Really? I don't know.
Not.
Do you think Rayner would run against Burnham though? Because I always saw Angela Rayner as if Burnham loses the election, Angela Rayner would then run instead of Burnham and try and go for that similar sort of vote.
I really don't know.
Get a job under Burnham. I think she probably gave him that bonnet he was wearing when he was trying to hide from the press.
I think obviously there's one thing I'm also kind of scared of as well. I don't know if you guys, well, I'll ask Curtis this because he spends way too much time on Twitter/X. Have you seen these videos going around of videos from the counts and people being like, this looks suspicious? Have you seen this? I'm really scared of just generally what the future's going to hold with the current state of politics when these videos are already going around. You've got the combination of the misinformation, the disinformation, the talking down of the country, the mood of the country, combined with a potential leadership battle, which I actually almost respect the idea that some of the ministers in the background have been reported today to just say to Keir Starmer, maybe you should just step away so we don't have to knife you in the back, essentially, because the mood of the country is so bad that a deadly leadership competition could just continue to harm the country further, the image of the party further. Can it really be damaged any further? But I'm really scared of just the state of things right now in just every corner of this country. That is it even possible for any leader that's currently in the running to have the ability to actually turn it around? I don't know.
I mean, it's not a deadly contest because it's not going to be a contest. It's Andy Burnham. That's it, right? If it's a close election between different candidates, it would be. I mean, who's seriously? There's no one going to defeat Andy Burnham in a leadership contest.
This is true.
But you are forgetting that again, we're talking about a group like Labour Together who were found out to have been, they hired private investigators previously to spy on people and to get stories on them so they can drop them and use it against them.
Yeah, look,
who knows what's going to be powerful?
There's going to be dirty tricks, but I mean, the alternative
Curtis,
is Starmer.
We've also got to remember that a lot of the people within the Labour Party who would have liked to have seen Andy Burnham lead the party are no longer in the party. There are a lot of more, and I know that, but again, I'll repeat, Burnham's no saviour of the left, but he would certainly have sort of gained a more left-wing vote within the party, and the party hasn't got any lefties left because Starmer told them all where the door was. So you've got. I think we've got to think about that.
It was even really embarrassing seeing John McDonnell getting teary. I'm like, John. By the way, John McDonnell would have been one of the best chancellors we ever had. Right, he would have been fantastic. The manifestos he put out in 2017, 2019, fantastic. Right, I do like the guy. He is a socialist, in a sense that look, he is a socialist, right? He does have a theory of socialism. But his expectation is so damn low. When you're getting teary over Andy Burnham. I mean, we had Aydin Dickadum on the show, Labour councillor for, I believe it was Wandsworth. Proper socialist, by the way. grew under the Corbyn era. And I understand why he stayed in the Labour Party, partly because it was more about his local party were doing really effective things. But he was telling me that I'm excited by Andy Burnham. Now, to give credit to him, he did say that, if back in 2015 you told me in 10 years' time you're going to be almost quite emotional over Andy Burnham, he'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? That's crazy. It does show how far to the right politics have got. But it doesn't mean that we have to delude ourselves into thinking that Andy Burnham is the answer. It all comes back, once again, I might sound like a broken record, but it all comes back to the party machinery. It doesn't matter about Andy Burnham. And I think there's not enough people who grasp that.
You're right.
And they think that a change of guard will change things. The last time that happens was under Jeremy Corbyn. They're not allowing that again, right?
No.
They, ironically, for those that don't know, the voting system to elect a Labour leader wasn't a one-member, one-vote. It was a third by the MPs, one-third by unions, and then I think it was one-third by members. Okay. And ironically, the one-member, one-vote, where no MPs or unions had more than one vote, shall we say, and an individual member got one vote, that was brought in to stop the left. It was brought in because they thought the left couldn't win because for some reason MPs in the party believed that the membership was to the right of the leadership. Okay, because Ed Miliband won under the old system, and they're like, the unions have far too much influence. What we're going to do is have a proper democratic process. I mean, I think the old system's kind of democratic, but to improve the democratic process, to have an individual member have an equal vote, and you're going to bring in a centrist Labour leader. That's what they believe. And then Jeremy Corbyn won off the back of that. So the Labour machinery thought, oh, fuck, we made a mistake. In trying to gatekeep the left and stop them, they've allowed them in. So, do you think that's ever going to be allowed to happen again? No. So the party is, in my opinion, irreformable. It will never, ever be changed. And I'm happy to be proven wrong, by the way, because I care about this country and I want to see more left-wing politics. I think it would be great if Labour swung to the left, similar to Jeremy Corbyn. It's not going to happen.
Well, just to add in, though, we're also forgetting that the NEC still have the ability, before a leadership contest even comes in, to change the shape and the framework of
everything.
Yeah, exactly. So again, the power behind that, which is very much blue Labour in lots of ways, could very much shape the election to favour and disfavour certain people. So anything could happen between now and whenever else. So we'll have to see.
I think there are also NEC elections coming up in August as well. So the NEC is due to change very soon.
I don't think. Oh, sorry, Ben. Did you want to come in?
No, go on. It's probably more relevant. Go on.
No, that's not true. Because I was actually going to say the term dum-dum. I don't think I actually was. I don't think Burnham is a dum-dum. I think Burnham knows that the way to win back Labour's initial voter base is to shift slightly left. Now, you're right, Curtis. I don't think he'll shift as left as Corbyn. But he would be a fool not to go slightly more left than what's happening
absolutely.
at the moment. And he knows that. So I think he knows what Labour once was, but the party machinery might mean that he is slightly restricted in how left he wants to go. So, but I do think that he will attempt to win back the Labour base that was initially there to begin with, because we still have people. We are currently, British politics at the moment it's a really interesting time. We are going in different directions all over the bloody gaff because people are really wanting something that is quite tangible, and I think Labour could possibly bring this back if he goes left. I don't think it'll be that hard because Labour really did go right.
But I think he'll go. I think what will happen is I think he'll go just left enough to win back a lot of, not to use the term disparagingly, but normal people. Again, people that don't follow politics quite closely, who maybe, prefer at the moment to vote for the Green Party because they don't like what Starmer's doing.
I don't think that's going to happen.
But I don't think he'll go. But I don't think he'll go left enough to appeal to the people who actually pay attention and know what's going on.
No, I disagree. I think he needs to go. So for me, this is what Andy Burnham can do, and I think this is what a lot of people think Andy Burnham's going to do, is just offer a very standard social democratic package, which is, say, I'm going to tax the rich, I'm going to bring in wealth taxes, or even bring in a land value tax. That's probably not likely. But he can say, I'm going to bring in rail, mail, and energy into public ownership, right? That's the sort of thing that will get your average person, because majority of people, whether you're Reform, Conservative, Labour, Green, support the very core tenets of a basic social democratic society of higher wages, higher tax on the rich, and public ownership. But in order to do that, right, that's not just going a little bit left. Just even doing that, the current iteration of the Labour Party will be like, absolutely not. I mean, they love having private capital within our public institutions. So there will be massive pushback to do that. So I don't know what you mean by Andy Burnham needs to go a little bit to the left. Well,
no, I'm not saying he needs to. I'm saying
people don't think
I think
left
that's
and
what
right.
he'll do. I'm not saying he needs to. He needs to go a lot more to the
no,
left.
but I mean,
I think
you think you're saying, oh, he'll go enough left enough where he can bring some people back.
Well,
I don't
yeah, I mean,
think you're going to bring people back unless you say, we're going to bring in a social democratic society.
But for average voters, right, in 2024, in that constituency, the Green Party got 1,776 votes, and that was in an election where there wouldn't have been a big. There was no Zach Polanski. There wasn't a big campaign. They weren't particularly trying. It wasn't that specific constituency election wasn't all over the place. We had Carla and Adrian as leaders of the party. It wasn't. The Greens weren't doing particularly well, and they got 1,776 votes. This time around, they got 308. And obviously, there are a lot of Green voters in that constituency who have voted Burnham simply because they wanted to keep Reform out, which makes sense. But I am willing to bet my life that a big chunk of those people that voted Green last time voted because they like Andy Burnham. And they feel that Andy Burnham offers something that they like, that maybe Keir Starmer's Labour in 2024 wasn't offering them, but that Andy is. And if those votes can shift in this by-election, and again, I appreciate it's in the context of the Greens not running a big campaign, but they've lost, what's that, 654? They've lost like 1,400 votes from the general election, partly, yes, through tactical voting. But if those voters are willing at this stage to say, we're going to vote for Andy Burnham, why wouldn't Green voters up and down the country who are not particularly, wedded to any particular party, why wouldn't they be sort of enticed to vote for Burnham if he's offering something that they perceive to be slightly more left wing than what Starmer's offering?
Do you know what miasma is?
No.
Miasma or miasma, depending on who you ask, how you pronounce it. Tomato, tomato.
I always think of I always think of the Black Death and the fact that people used to think that certain it was. They
Are you going to give us another history lesson, Ben?
I thought you were trying to say asthma, but I'm ready. I'm here for it.
Miasma or miasma, as Callum quite correctly says, it's bad air theory. So it was the idea that disease is carried through bad smells, right? And there's a reason that this idea caught on. It's because miasma theory seems a lot more empirical. It seems a lot more scientific, because if you have an outbreak of cholera in a town, and there's an open sewer, it's like, well, yeah, they don't have a germ theory at this point. So they think, oh, well, it's the smell that causes it. And the people who put forward this theory seemed more correct than the people who were saying, well, disease is caused by curses from God or whatever it might be. The religious theory is to do with sin, whatever that version might be. The people who put forward miasma theory were listened to in academic circles because it just seemed that little bit more empirical. It was still wrong, but it seemed that little bit more empirical, and it's closer to germ theory. And I think in the exact same way, if you like, the curses from God are Blue Labour and Starmer, right? They're the people who were going like, okay, there's nothing empirical about this. Every time they shit the bed, every time that they're put in front of a camera, they just shit the bed, right? And then you've got the miasma theory. That's Andy Burnham.
Burnham's the bad smell.
He is the bad smell, right? And it seems more accurate because one, Burnham is just a better speaker, but two, it seems more empirical to people because they see how popular he is in Manchester and the amount that he fought for that community, because he was a good mayor, but he was a good mayor largely through what he calls Manchesterism, which we don't have a good definition of, but
I don't
is sort
really
of
know what it
PFI-like. Yeah, it's sort of like, it seems to me that there's something a bit PFI-like about it. It's a bit like private investment now for potential pain later on. I think it is, but like done on a sort of local level, and ultimately the germ theory is somebody like Jeremy Corbyn and Zach Polanski. That's what people think they're getting. That's what they think they're voting for, the more empirical answer. But what they're actually voting for is the bad air theory. They're voting for the theory that, yeah, it gets you closer, but it's not actually the answer, right?
Yeah, and I don't think the Greens or Green voters voting for Andy Burnham are necessarily, they're just thinking, look, maybe he might move Labour to the left and we're going to back him to stop reform as well. That's that theory. But they're going to quickly find out that's not the case. And now he's won those voters for now, right? He's living on borrowed votes. They're not, he's not got them completely. He's going to have to deliver. And I think there's going to be a lot of people who are like, right, largely the economic policies that Andy Burnham's supporting isn't really different to Keir Starmer, and they're going to go back to the Greens. So I feel like in order to have a long-term strategy, it's going to have to be a radical break from the current status quo. You can't just slightly tiptoe to the left because people won't feel it. And of course, the right wing are going to attack Andy Burnham anyway. So unless he radically changes course from Keir Starmer, then he's going to prove the majority of voters correct, because the majority of voters say, or 50% of voters say, that Andy Burnham is going to be a continuation of Keir Starmer. He's going to prove them correct. So he has to change radically.
Do you think that applies with...
Sarah down.
Do you think that applies with reform looming as well? Because there's also... there is a belief among many in the electorate that Andy Burnham's proven today this week that he can beat reform in an area that only a couple of months ago was, where reform wiped the floor. And something that worries me in terms of the Greens' success under a Burnham leadership is that if there is a perception, even if he's shifted on, if he's only moved on a couple of things and nothing else has really changed, but there's this perception that he can keep reform out where maybe Starmer can't, there will be people that will vote for him purely on that basis. So if there's one thing that the left are really good at, it's tactical voting. Now, they're not going to try that when it's Starmer. There's no point in voting for Labour under Starmer anymore. There's no point. But Burnham, because he's had all this, I suppose the to answer my own question, it depends really on how long he's Prime Minister for, if he becomes Prime Minister before there's a general election. If he sees the term out until 2029, absolutely, I don't think the Greens will be affected. Or he'll prove everyone wrong. He'll prove us wrong, and he'll do a great job, and people will be happy to vote for him. But equally, if he does what some suggest he might do, becomes Prime Minister, and then, quickly, or fairly quickly, even if that's 6 months down the line, calls an election on the basis that, look, all I can do is deliver what was voted on last time, you need to elect me on a new manifesto, I think people will vote for that, because they'll still... You've got to remember that even when things don't change, people still think that they're voting for change. We've seen it with Reform. Reform have got in the other year in county councils, completely destroyed the county councils. And then Reform have gone, yeah, but that isn't our fault, it's someone else's fault. And then the same people have voted Reform in the district councils, in areas that they've absolutely destroyed. Places in Lancashire which has gone to shit, they've then voted again in May for the same party, because they still see it as offering something different, because they... see, now I'm getting into really dangerous territory now, where I'm basically saying that the electorate are thick, but there is definitely but there is definitely an element within Joe Public where normal people don't see the intricacies of the things that we see, is what I'm trying to say.
I'm going to be controversial and say, and I'm sorry, the extra green lovers can push back on this. I don't think there's a single mainstream party right now offering any significant change that would actually make the change that we need. I still think every version is just another significant, a minor adjustment to the system. Even the Greens 2% wealth tax, whoever else is talking about that, there are people in Labour who are for that. Lib Dems have talked about taxing people a little bit more. I still think that is it's a plaster, a little bandage. I still think that's not even it's going to help, but it's not going to fix, it's not going to change anything significantly. So it sounds like I'm about to call for a revolution. I wish. And I think that's still the problem where we are. I think the only thing that's going to make anybody win over the next few years is, it's almost like going back to the first thing that Sarah said, is vibes in a way. I feel like you need to, the right wing has got to the position where it's in right now, the further right, based off of vibes and emotion. And that can be obviously a bad thing when it's done in the wrong way, when it's to do with populism, when it's to do with scapegoating. The only way to move forward, and there's a lot of leftists who hate the idea of we just need the perfect leader, but that is also part of it. We need more leaders. We need better people who are going to make people feel better, also angry, but also positive about the change that you can get in the future, to build the consent to make actual change, not just slight adjustments to the system. Now, feel free to push back.
No, I think we're all going to agree that everyone wants actual change. I think vibes are fine as long as tangible change happens, but vibes need to be let's actually shift this economic model that is pushing, kids into poverty and leaving people suffering the way that they are. I won't back vibes if vibes are just being said for political point scoring purposes, and I find that often at the moment that's what people are doing. People are just wanting to score points. It's just political football at the moment. I want to see anti-austerity movements. I want to see things that are addressing union struggles. I just want to see some grassroots organizing. And you're right, I think that any of these parties are doing it? No. But do I think some are more vibesy than others? Absolutely. But it seems that they're all vibesy in one way or another, because they're all saying things that are ticking people's boxes. It's just, who can you invigorate the most, and who can you motivate the most, and what fucking changes are you going to make as a result of these vibes you're putting out there? Because I don't know, I want to see huge shifts. I don't want to see little
Sarah,
shifts.
it's interesting that you talk about
right, but you've got to think about Jeremy Corbyn's manifesto. So look, I do think most people do base their votes on vibes. However, was Jeremy Corbyn this amazing orator? Probably not. Yet his campaign spiked in 2017 with the manifesto leaks, and the thing that got people excited, I know I bang on about this, but the thing that got people excited was nationalisation. And the reason why is because I speak to so many people from different political persuasions, and I hear the same thing. It's absolutely crazy that we have privatisation. You can find your most right-wing person, and yeah, I don't think privatisation will work. So, policies do matter, but you have to sell a story. And the Jeremy Corbyn campaign, it was for the many, not the few. The rich are destroying us. We need to do this. And it's the eco-populism that Zach is doing. You have to have vibes with policy. Labour is no vibes, no policy. Andy Burnham is some vibes, but we still don't really have any policy. You kind of have to have both.
With Corbyn, though, and what Sarah's saying about community organising, that's something that your party actually did very well. Your party was full.
Really? Who?
Did anything well?
Your party was full of people on the left who are involved with community organising. I'm not saying that the organising of your party was good. It was a shambles. But it was full of people. It was full of those trade unionists. It was full of those activists. It was full of those people, like the people in Chorley, who spend every Saturday outside of Chorley's hospital and have been for years now with the Save the local A&E campaign. A lot like people like Michael Lavalette, who we've interviewed before in Preston, who did a load of work around with the Muslim community in Preston on the issues around Palestine and Gaza. There were people from all up and down the country involved with your party who actually knew and understood more about community organising, and it's one of the criticisms that I have and that a lot of people have about the Green Party. They're great at getting a campaign together, but when it comes to doing an event for your local community or fighting for you to keep your local hospital open or to run another campaign, they don't seem to be very good at it. So maybe we need more of what your party had, but without all of the political fighting.
I think you make a fair point about community organising. I think there's a danger of using the phrase "the change we need" to either mask a campaign that has nothing behind it, or make the perfect the enemy of the good. And I think there are really good things that the Greens are putting forward that, and by the way, not just the Greens, there are local councils, Labour local councils, who are putting, and even Lib Dem local councils who are putting forward things that are revolutionary in this country. For example, the use of Section 106 agreements, which are basically binding contracts between developers and local councils that can provide leverage to like benefit the community. So, for example, you might say, well, you can develop in this area, but it's written into the contract that you have to hire 50% of your staff have to be trainees from the local community, right? There's all sorts of things that can be done like that. There's social supermarkets, there's cooperative networks, there is public commons partnerships where local authorities will set up a cooperative and then it's split into more or less owned in three parts by the local authority, by the workers themselves, and by the Commons Association, and then local people in the Commons Association. The Commons Association is made up of local people, can then vote on how the excess profit surpluses from the cooperative is reinvested, so it keeps a cycle of money going. There is community land trusts. There is so many investing pension funds into local communities so that money all stays local. So cyclical stuff that just would revitalize so many town centres, because so many town centres are just fucked. And that change, although it's not the change we need as a whole, I feel like we could have a full-blown Russian revolution and not get to the change we need as a whole, right? I feel like that phrase is potentially going to do us harm, because the other thing I want to point out is that the Greens have played this so well, right? Tomorrow, the Greens are going to launch their Manchester mayoral campaign. Why do they want the mayorship? Well, they want the mayorship because, ultimately it's better because it's more power to push democratic localism, the same way Andy Burnham has done, but better, but more democratic. And what did they do? So somebody in the chat earlier said that in Makerfield they never should have fielded a candidate because it's a waste of their deposit. They lost their deposit. I think that was probably worth it because they were never going to win Makerfield, okay? But what they did is they got somebody on Question Time to challenge Robert Kenyon.
Yeah, they
right?
did.
And what did Sarah Wakefield ask? I made a note of it because I thought it was so good. She asked him, will he apologise for his comments about women, right? And the thing is, you force them into a catch-22 because Reform never apologise. They don't apologise because they know that the papers the next day will say Robert Kenyon apologises for blank, and then it will just be a series of ex-candidate apologises for blank constantly. Why did you apologise for this? You were forced to apologise, weren't you? But the alternative, and the one they went for, the other option for Robert Kenyon was to sit there and be humiliated on Question Time. And then Andy Burnham, of course, had a free run. But that's just, the Greens doing that actually did, help humiliate Reform and helped to deny them that victory. It's not everything, but it still was worth the deposit, I think.
I'm not sure when we're going to comment, but I do want to make sure we save 5 minutes to talk about the other two by-elections as well that nobody knows even really existed.
Yes, absolutely. I want to talk about those.
Should we do that in a moment then?
Yeah, but also the victimization of Reform. Did anyone see? We saw that video. Did anyone see? We had it on the stream. The video of Nigel Farage being well, yeah, it was a bit of a blunder, but hey, we were going off the same campaign. Vote Burnham, Starmer out. It was just felt very very much like a cop out, and I do wonder why.
I mean, it was actually quite an honest video though, because he is right. Because we pointed out how in the local elections they were or especially in Gorton and Denton, it was vote reform, get rid of Starmer. And then a lot of us pointed out, well, this one is basically vote reform, keep Starmer. And at least Nigel Farage actually acknowledged that, which was very funny.
I don't know, but
yeah.
I don't know. Reform don't know how to take a loss, to be honest. And I
They don't know how to take an L. That's
my
true.
my
Yeah,
highlight
they
of the
don't.
night was watching Thangam Debonair proper go at Sarah Poaching over the grooming gangs thing on Sky News, because
Yeah,
like,
you know,
I don't, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a fan of Thangam at all. But I was with her on that, because the way that Sarah Poaching, but especially after she put that bloody pathetic video out about the bloody football and domestic violence, where she
That
completely
video
missed the,
was
but where she
ridiculous.
completely missed the point though, which is that when England play, domestic violence goes up. Like the issue is, and actually there's been a lot of studies that show the actual link. The reason it happens, the actual link is alcohol. So if she wanted to do some sort of like football campaign around it, she'd have been better off advising people to drink less during the World Cup than saying, come on England, make sure you win, otherwise our British women are going to get abused. It was just
stupid.
so out of touch and completely...
Actually, though, but it proves it. Sorry, Callum. It proves the point that Reform do not care about women and girls. Like, even the women who are a part of Reform do not care about women and girls. It has always been a political point scoring thing for them. If you wanted to actually convince people you cared, talk about wanting to hold perpetrators to account. Like, that's what should have happened. You should have said, well, we need to allocate more funding to domestic abuse services that are so overworked, underpaid, and they aren't able to deal with the extent of the abuse that's forming the fabrics of British society. Instead, Sarah Poaching, you want to sit there and say, well, I've actually worked with women and girls for how many years was it? Like 6 years or 20 years?
20 years. And then Thangam was like, well, I
years.
see you're 20 and raise you by 6.
Yeah, that's what she said. But I'm like, 20 years where, darling? Like, did you actually work on the helplines? Because I bloody did. The local
she was
team
a magistrate.
Never. The local team would never win. Well, they did sometimes. But when they never won, which was rare, they'd rarely win, there was always, the calls would go up so much. You have women literally crying on the phone being like, I'm so fucking scared of this situation I'm in.
Evidence, but I used to work in a pub in Nottingham, and it was the England World Cup, England were playing and went to penalties, and everyone was in a good mood. Like, I was working at the time, but like the World Cup was on, England were playing, and yeah, everyone in a fantastic mood. Of course, people were drinking. Then England lost on penalties, and immediately, everyone felt the vibe shift. And we were saying, especially those who were working behind the bar, were like, guaranteed there's a fight, guaranteed there's people going to kick off. Lo and behold, there was a fight. You got alcohol, you got lots of energy going around, and then England lost. It just breeds more violence. But of course, as you also mentioned, like, it happens when football's on, it happens when England's on as well. But that was a crazy thing for Sarah. I think she might have deleted that post now, because just a complete fucking
damage
idiot.
is done though. The damage is done. It's out. It'll be out there.
Not to undermine magistrates, but she used that to try and sort of prove a point to Thangam Debonair. Yeah, she was a magistrate for 20 years. Anyone watching this stream can become a magistrate. Like, it's a voluntary position. The idea is that normal people, anybody can do that. You've got to, you've got to have a good sense of moral judgment, perhaps. Whether she's got that or not, we don't know. But any one of us, anyone watching can be a magistrate. You can apply. Obviously, you still have to be selected to do it. But it's not like she's spent years, being paid as like a top dog lawyer who understands the law and the legal framework and has worked in that sense. And again, not to undermine the work that magistrates do, it's an important role. But she makes my skin crawl.
Same.
That when Hannah Spencer asked the question on VAT in Parliament and talked about having previously worked with what was it she said? She'd worked with she was used to working with
behind me or something.
Grubby filth or something, and she was like, and they're still behind me. Sarah Poaching's face was an absolute picture.
Sarah Poaching, more like Sarah Notion. Am I
Jesus
right?
Christ.
Oh, that was
that's
really
terrible.
good.
The I do think that if she ever gets invited onto Question Time again, her handlers are going to lock her in a cupboard away from her phone to try and stop her getting on that show, because she is just a liability every time she goes on camera. Because she was the same one who did the I hate seeing non-white faces on TV.
She did.
Like she's just a massive liability for them. Like just like every time they seem to be getting ahead, Sarah Pochin comes along and just kneecaps them. It's ridiculous.
I was just trying to find the name of the creator. He's like he's not like a politics creator. He's a gay guy who lives in Brighton, and he does like influencer videos, but he occasionally talks about politics. And he posted about it today, and he was just like, "Oh, I think they're doing this on purpose to like manufacture the consent and so they dehumanize people and just say shocking things." And I was like, you know what? You could say that for a lot of people, but I think she's genuinely just stupid.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I remember his name's Sam, but I was just like, I'm sorry. She's just an absolute idiot. It's not that deep. She's just that stupid.
She's actually thick.
It's what's really frustrating is that she got him on 6 votes. Like if 10,000 Labour voters hadn't been so discouraged.
I want it to stay on because it's you need some kind
of
entertainment.
They'll just wheel her out like
they'll
wheel her out like they do with Layla Cunningham. It's fine.
Relief, you know.
Still put her out there. Lewis, you wanted to you had some comments to make about the other by-elections, didn't you?
Oh, his name's Sam Morris. I was just checking. No, because I do think it's actually really interesting, the other 2 by-elections, which nobody talked about at all anywhere that I could see for the last couple of weeks.
The Conservatives talked about it.
Well, yeah, they definitely talked about it. So, so it was Aberdeen South, which was Stephen Flynn, and I can't even remember the reason why the other one happened, but that's Arbroath, and I think it's pronounced Broe. Like, it's a silent GHT. Scottish people, confirm or give me hate, please, in the comments. But yeah, so reform, I'm focusing on this from a reform perspective, just because, again, it's all about the hype of reform. And in many ways, they just didn't do that well at all.
Yeah.
They've been, hyping up Scotland in so many ways. So for the Aberdeen South one, obviously, they got, 2,400. They came in 3rd. And then Conservatives got 14,000. And again, I think it's wild because obviously Stephen Flynn was previously the person who was the MP there. He's gone to become an MSP. The change is quite significant, but I actually kind of find it so interesting how people have jumped from that to Conservative rather than going with Reform.
The Legacy Party have made a comeback.
Yeah, but what's more interesting is that Reform lost votes from 2024. They got, I'm just looking at 3,199 in 2024, and the election yesterday, 2,400. And yet different turnout, but still, but quite a big different turnout, to be honest. And obviously there's lots of issues with the SNP right now. And in the other one as well, Reform again came 3rd. Lara Bird won the seat, SNP. Jack Cruikshanks was the Conservative. Cruikshanks, sorry, distracted by funny names. And they only got 4,300. And then in the 2024 election, they got 3,800. Like, if you actually look at all the Reform results from multiple by-elections, yeah, in a lot of cases, they have made jumps. But when you actually look at vote shares and stuff like this, when you take into consider the fact there's now been, 5 by-elections, Reform has won 1 by 6 votes.
Yeah.
God, 6 votes, and we wouldn't have got all those clips from Sarah Pochin. Jesus Christ. And again, it is just very much vibes-based politics. And I haven't seen any of the polling for these by-elections or anything like that. I'd be interested to actually go back and see what they were polling at later on. But it just feels like polling and vibes is just kind of like messing up the perspective of like who's going to win, how well people are doing, what's going to happen in elections. I think Reform are still being overhyped in a way. I genuinely believe that when people are doing polls, that they are almost like answering in protest rather than actual commitment. Like this is what they would actually do. And I know there's the occasional poll, which is like if you had to vote and you can't vote other, who would you vote for? I think it is genuinely a protest. But I think when push comes to shove, when anybody goes into a voting booth and they see the name Reform, they think of Nigel Farage. And I think they can do that on a poll maybe. They can say it as like a threat, as in a protest. But I think a lot of people aren't going to do it. And when you combine that with tactical voting, I don't see it going anywhere. And again, I'll say it. I don't think he's going to be the leader of the party by the time the next election comes around.
I think there was someone that said, I don't know if it was a Labour Party source or somebody that said, who was it? Somebody said recently, I think it was maybe on the radio, that like their assistant or someone that was like close to them in the party just were getting polled for this by-election, and every time they were polled for Makerfield, every time they were asked a question, they gave a different answer, just depending on like how they felt when they woke up. Like, so you've got to take them with a pinch of salt. I thought it was interesting. I know you were talking about polling for Scotland as well, but I thought it was interesting in Makerfield that the Greens and Restore were both polling at 7%, and Restore got 7%, but the Reform, the Green vote, sorry, only got a tenth of that. So,
but it's possible though that like last minute there was a lot of Green to Labour switches.
Oh, I mean that's definitely what happened, isn't it? You know.
Yeah. Which is strange because obviously we were told when we met with Reform HQ, they were saying that Restore's vote was the most malleable, and we were surprised because we thought, well, actually, when it comes to Restore, we probably thought they were quite, motivated in their support for Restore, and they still managed to get that 7%, whereas the Greens, maybe the Greens were just the most malleable. Maybe they were the ones who were easily swayed. I don't know. I mean, we probably running off anecdotal evidence. I mean, he did cite that poll to us, or his internal data saying that 55% of people supported were locked in for Restore, and but Labour and Reform was 75%. But who knows at the end of the day?
I want to cut in about Aberdeen South, because I really think that Aberdeen South is an interesting election to watch, because the winner, Douglas Lumsden from the Conservatives, he won with 49.5% of the vote, I think, taking it for the SNP. And what he was running was like an anti-net zero cost of living campaign, because jobs were being lost to the like offshore oil jobs. Offshore drilling was jobs were being lost. So this is from the campaign, and you look at this, and if you couldn't see the Scottish Conservative and Unionist symbol in the right, you could assume that this was a Labour leaflet, right? It wouldn't be wrong, I think, to assume that this was a Labour leaflet because of the red, the black, the way that it's like the Conservative message is just not. It's not. There, it's not all blue. It's not got a picture of Kemi Badenoch on it. The way that Nigel Farage is sending like pictures of him round to the general electorate, right? It's all greens and reds because they're the colours that are currently associated with cost of living, and they wanted to run a cost of living campaign that, right, what does it say there? Beat the SNP. It doesn't say anything about like put the Conservatives in. It says beat the SNP and keep the pressure on Labour to save local oil and gas jobs. It was an anti-net zero campaign, but it was also big time about cost of living, and I think it just shows. It goes to show that they are like. Cost of living is how you beat almost every other party. If you run a cost of living campaign, you've got a victory right there. Yeah, but definitely check that leaflet out, because it's interesting that this is the sort of literature that they were putting out, and it's all about North Sea oil and more specifically local jobs. Local jobs. Yeah, your vote can save local oil and gas jobs. That's what it was all about. Yeah, and I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on that more generally.
It's nothing new, though, is it? Like using these types of tactics. It is interesting. Obviously, Aberdeen is a very specific thing because of the oil and gas industry. But again, I wonder if maybe, I'm just literally coming up with this now, maybe because these two by-elections barely got any attention, right? I genuinely forgot that they were happening. The fact that the media didn't have a circus around them, which they would have done, if there would have been no Makerfield by-election, they would have like framed it as like the double Scottish by-election, right? It would have got way more attention and coverage. I wonder if the fact that they weren't able to cause any virality around it, Reform, actually, it really hurt them because they require so much internet success and virality. And there was no clips circulating around of Farage saying anything about Scotland or any of these other people. So I wonder if like the absolute lack of virality is actually what's hurt the Reform the most.
Reform don't run local campaigns. They just don't. It's all a national thing. It's a cult of personality. That's why they keep fielding terrible candidates. We saw this in the local elections. I even think we saw it in Gorton Denton. Yes, Matt Goodwin is high profiled, but ultimately it's about Farage. It's about the National Party. The message, even the message from Reform in Gorton and Denton saying vote Reform, get rid of Starmer. People are like, this is a by-election. Of course, the difference in Makerfield, they were voting for potential new Prime Minister. But in Gorton and Denton, the Greens ran a very, very local campaign with a brilliant candidate in Hannah Spencer, and Reform had a terrible candidate. And again, they had a terrible candidate. So I do think that you're probably right, Lewis, because this didn't get much traction, Reform couldn't basically use their national prominence to win it, and it was based on a local campaign. And because Reform have absolutely nothing to say to voters apart from immigration, then I'm not surprised about that.
Also,
but I just want to say there was 20 past 9 though, and I'm getting a bit.
I was just going to butt in and say, shall we start to look at some comments? I might have to keep it fairly short and sweet, but I think that.
Can just while I'm getting the super chats up, can I just say on that point? I think you're right, and I think that's partly why Sarah Poachin won by 6 votes, because during that Runcorn and Helsby election, I don't remember anywhere near as much coverage of Reform during that election. What happened there was 10,000 Labour voters just didn't show up, and I don't think anyone was expecting that. And actually, had there been more coverage of it, and had Sarah Poachin been out and actually been doing the media rounds to the extent that we saw Rob Kenyon doing, I don't think she'd have won the seat. So,
sorry, I don't want to get deep into it, but also this wasn't the only bad thing that happened to Farage this week, because you've got to consider there has now been a split, like it seems like an actual split between Trump and Israel, which puts Farage's politics in a really difficult place, like on an international
the
level.
article that came out like 3 hours ago about Israeli intelligence?
New Yorker?
No, it was Washington Post. The intelligence in the US have specifically released reports saying that Netanyahu is going to try to undermine Trump in the US.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to consider what position this puts Nigel Farage in. If he guesses wrong, if he backs the wrong horse, his whole funding could right from underneath him, and it will go to Restore or the Conservatives.
He's going to be like, who do I choose, Daddy Trump or Mummy Netanyahu?
So super chats. Michael has gifted a Turn Left membership. Thanks, Michael. Terry has gifted 10 Turn Left memberships.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. James has also gifted 10 Turn Left memberships.
Get some nice donations.
We've had a £2 super chat from Platform Radio saying, "Here's the Turn Left Fix Your Mic Fund." Thank you.
Never gets old.
Steve is rebelling in caps with a £2 donation there as well. We've also had from Steve 20 Turn Left memberships gifted. Thanks for that. Welcome to all those newbies. Terry sent another £2. Fix your bloody mic.
We're gonna get
I actually don't think it's the mic.
I still
think it's setting. Oh, it's settings and software. I don't think it's
sitting.
It's sitting
two microphones next to each other.
People are going to think that we're doing this on purpose just to get donations. Oh, guys, the mic is broken again.
You know, someone who's like me, who's obsessed with quality and professionalism, I could not do this on purpose. I wouldn't do it.
Marriage Causes Divorce has also sent £2 for the audio fund. Loop has then gifted 20 Turn Left memberships. Thank you for those. Deus Ex Ollie's gifted 5 Turn Left memberships. Thank you very much. We've had a comment from Steve with the £5 chat as well. It's just quick interest of everyone's thoughts on this one. Burnham didn't win. The others didn't lose. It was a referendum on Starmer, nothing more. They've not even lent him their votes.
I don't think it's ever down to one single reason. That's definitely a factor, but it can never be the only reason, right? But Andy has support. People turned out to tactically vote against Reform, plus exactly what Steve has said. I think it's always a combination of factors, and then which one is the leading one will always be a forever argument.
Yeah. Agreed. Well said.
And then Andrew sent £2 and said this is the best multi-doctor special since 2013. And then said watch
I'm the only
Burks.
one wearing a suit.
David
so
Tennant's
I'm qualified to be.
David Tennant's the best doctor. Fight me to the death.
What does multi-doctor even mean?
Sarah.
Just too uncultured.
No, just not a nerd like the rest of you, Jacob.
You ain't wrong.
Andrew also says watch Burks. I think a couple of Burks are going live at 10 o'clock
Let's
when we'll be
raid
off air
into
by
them
then. So we'll do
That's
that.
what I was going to say. Yeah.
Wait.
So yeah. Go on.
Oh, never mind. Sorry. I thought we missed a comment, but we didn't.
So, we've also got this one that's come up as well. Andrew Carter celebrates 24 months of membership.
Wow.
That has appeared too.
Thank you.
Just another one that Steve said, which was interesting. Steve said, I asked LBC this during the local elections and just got a sarcastic answer. I wondered if you guys know. Can Starmer call an early general election to avoid a leadership challenge? The short answer is yes, he can. If the Prime Minister wants to call a general election, he can do so. And it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, Starmer's allegedly done this in the past where he's threatened people, hasn't he, with a general election if they don't support him.
He might do it.
So who knows? You know, if you're gonna challenge me, you're all gonna lose your job.
Calls a general election, right?
It's
Just
just
funny timeline. Funny timeline. It calls a general election. Both Starmer and Andy Burnham lose their seats.
Delay.
That would be funny.
I was going to say, technically, if he looks so weak, right, because we've never been put in this constitutional position, if, for example, all the established cabinet just like resigned, or half of them resigned, and he had no confidence in anyone, and he went to the king, because he has to still go to the king, he can't just call a general election, he has to ask permission. Technically, the king can say no.
Yeah, but has that ever happened? Really?
That's never happened, though.
No, they're never going to say no. Why? Sorry, King Charles will say yes because he knows for a fact it will get the heat off of his bloody family. He'll be like, yeah, fuck it. Go do the general election. I don't want them looking
If there was literally no government because everyone's resigned, then we've never been put in that constitutional position. But I don't think it'd get there anyway. But I'm just saying,
John the Brazen has said, I have to disagree with Callum. Your party is a mixed bag depending on where they get their experience from. Some are just loud noise and no action.
I think that's a fair comment, to be fair.
I also
But I don't think Callum was saying that, in fairness, I don't think, Callum, you were saying that your party is really good at community organising everywhere. You were saying that there are some specific spots, like John.
There are people who come from experience and come into it.
I'm just starring another comment, which will be a good one to come up.
Arthur Bumblefoot also said, successive polls show that the average UK person doesn't have a clue about anything. They aren't thick, they are ignorant, which I think definitely plays a part. But speaking of Arthur, Arthur's also said, which I thought was interesting, Keir will resign in the next 2 weeks, but stay on until a leadership contest happens just before the Labour conference in September, same as when Jeremy Corbyn resigned. What's thoughts on that one?
We did get a headline during the show which said, it was from the Times, which I was going to get the text up, but basically it just said that Keir Starmer is now considering resigning and he is going to consider the situation with his family over the weekend.
I have a comment about that, actually.
I'm sorry, he won't. He really won't.
He just said today that he was going to.
He's not going to.
Stay.
He's not going to. He's actually. I'm not joking. I've never come across anyone more delusional than Starmer. I think Starmer is the most delulu prime minister we've had.
I don't want him to resign.
I also think he's stubborn. I think he's a stubborn guy.
Just quickly on what Lewis just said. So we did have a comment on this. You just pipped us to the post there. QVC Owl had said the Times is reporting that Starmer is saying he will, quote, discuss with his family over the weekend about his future. This is code speak for he has made up his mind to resign.
Yeah, but do you know what we've also heard reports that Starmer's going to offer Andy Burnham a cabinet position. We've heard reports that Wes Streeting is going to try and be
But if you think of the timeline,
reports. I'm just a bit like.
But the report of the cabinet position came out, and then Andy's team refuted that and said, well, he's not going to accept a cabinet position because he wants to keep his hands clean and not be associated with this. So that kind of put that to bed. But also, he's not going to no prime minister ever. You know, it's a running joke, isn't it, about other people that when the Prime Minister stands up and says, I have full confidence in them, you know that they're going to get sacked the next day. And that's essentially what Starmer's done today. Starmer's gone out on the media round and he said, I have full confidence in myself. I will stay. I will fight a leadership. So I'm not surprised that this is now being reported that he's having that discussion. He's not going to tell us until he decides to go.
Can I just bring up this comment quickly, because this would be such a funny move from Starmer. This would be such a funny move. It would be hilarious if Starmer It would be even better if he stripped
I would give him respect for that.
Strip the whip and then resigns.
I would actually give him respect for that, just for the
on the condition of being irresponsible and calling an unnecessary by-election, which brought disrepute to the party. I mean, they could probably do that.
Many.
They've got to wait for him.
Where's Andy? Bye.
They've got to wait for him. They've got to wait for him to be sworn in on Monday, and then once he's been sworn in, they can just do it straight away.
Oh God, he really does want to release the sausages, doesn't he? He doesn't want them anywhere near him. He is genuinely so just like
He's
this
awful, though,
every day, and all I hear him say is many
Many times.
Many times.
Many times.
If you're Starmer at this point, though, like you're absolutely fine. You might as well go out with a bang. Take the whip off Andy Burnham,
fuck it.
and then just as your last, like, give a final speech as Prime Minister, and then at the end of it, just be like, and for my final act, I'm obviously going to resign from the Premiership, and I'd just like to say meep meep, and then just fuck off.
Meep, meep. You know what? His poll ratings are going sky high.
Is that what Pingu does?
Meep, meep. No, it's what he did.
Do you not remember?
Meep, meep.
No.
He starts to say, I don't even know what he's actually meant to say.
He's
But he's
starting
starting
to
to say,
Mr. Speaker. He's trying to say
Yeah.
Mr. He's
oh
going,
yes,
Oh.
I've
not seen this. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, it's actually
so
good.
good.
I thought he was doing an impersonation of Pingu.
Ollie's also said, talking about Burnham, his ideological flexibility means he can change position when necessary or mess up when untethered from political reality.
That's true. Very
which
true.
was interesting. I mean, look, we've had loads of comments. We can go through some more if we like. Although time is massively pressing on.
Can someone tell me in the comments when's the last time we had a Northern Prime Minister?
Also, interestingly, when was the last time, and the answer is never, that we had a Prime Minister that was actually a member of the Labour and Cooperative Party? Because he stood as a Labour co-op,
He did, yeah.
not just Labour. So,
I'm leaning towards. Sorry, I'm leaning towards going to keeping this short because this room is getting hotter and hotter. I don't know if anybody else in a really warm room.
Yeah,
Well, I think Easy Mux is about to blow up as well.
I just wanted to bring this one in though because I thought this was interesting from Pancho Sanders that came in a couple of hours ago. Can and should Zach Polanski react to Burnham's big win by moving the Greens further to the left? I think yes. There's still enough space, and the expanded electorate and membership might carry it. What are your thoughts on that one?
I think you should hammer on Palestine.
Shouldn't Zach Polanski react to Burnham's big win by moving the Greens further to the left?
The thing is, I think tactics need to change on some topics though as well. When it comes to, it sounds awful, but I'm almost like fed up of people just saying it's a genocide, it's apartheid. They need to let people understand what that means, right? There are so many stories out there that do come out every day that can like really help humanize this situation more. And I feel like, even though it's the correct words to use, I feel like people do a terrible job at actually really explaining exactly what's going on. You know, like what Ben-Gvir said today, for example, if everybody saw this, he wants to burn down Lebanon and all of Lebanon, and for every tear an Israeli mother sheds, I want to see 1,000 tears from Lebanese mothers. Like this type of stuff can be really grabbed on quite quickly
Is someone by an
and used in the right way.
I know.
Someone right next to Heathrow.
Bloody
Oh shit! My window is up and there was a plane going by. Sorry.
It's okay.
I
But
thought
yeah,
you were
like
flying
I
away.
feel like there's so many opportunities to like change tactics on lots of things in terms of how ideas and things that are happening are solved. Because I think people are just almost like fed up of using the same words, and people are fed up of hearing it. You need to find different ways to say what you're saying, essentially. And I don't think anybody's really doing that.
I agree with that completely. That's a great point. That's
Do we leave it there then?
Probably a good time
Do we
to
film?
leave, isn't it? Yeah.
About an hour. Well, we're actually nearly 2 hours in. We went a little bit late, aren't we? But we're an hour and 45, which is quite impressive, guys.
But this is the first time we've ever had all 6 of us
That's crazy.
here.
Yeah.
Like, guys, this is such a big deal. This is a huge success.
Just before,
sorry. God, it's like we're in a meeting and I'm being so unprofessional.
just before we do wrap up, if I may, because I don't know if we agreed we were going to do this or not. We talked about it briefly. There has been quite a horrific train crash today in Bedford. Keir Starmer's released a statement saying hugely concerning reports of a collision involving 2 passenger trains near Bedford. First and foremost, my thoughts are with the family of the person who has sadly lost their life. It's understood that that's the driver of one of the trains, and with those who have been seriously injured. I am grateful to the emergency services for their swift response to this tragic incident. There were reports earlier this evening that suggested about 50 or so people have been injured. So obviously our thoughts, I assume, imagine you all with me, that our thoughts go out to anyone affected by it, and we'll keep an eye on it, and I don't know whether we'll talk about it next week. We'll see what happens. But obviously, that's an ongoing, quite a horrific ongoing story at the moment. So. Yeah, we'll just keep an eye on that.
We'll have to see what happens. I was saying, I know a little bit this. I always get scared of situations like this, not just because of the actual situation itself, but just because how the information world that we're living in and how pretty much everything and anything's weaponized now. So I'll leave it at that, but I'm just scared of anything like this now. And it makes me feel sad that I have to feel that way. It's like, oh, how's this going to be weaponized by someone?
Do you not think when a story comes out immediately now, rather than feeling sympathy, I'm automatically thinking, oh, how is this going to be weaponized now? All the right wing's going to love this, and that's such a sad state we live in, because people are going to weaponize something.
It's happened with this crocodile attack. They're all waiting to find out like the race of this person so they can try and weaponize it. It's just,
literally this week, two men have been convicted of horrific abuse of their adopted son, and there's not been any riots. Nothing's been set alight on fire because the perpetrators are white. So.
There are still some DEI narratives they're trying to push around that, though. Oh, they got off because they're gay, and it checks a box. Fuck off.
Exactly that. There's all these weird conspiracies, and you're right. Kirsty make a great point. Sorry, this will be the last point, but I hate the visceral fear I feel when watching the news or I see an article pop up on my phone that an attack has taken place, and I'm just like, fuck. If they're black, if they're Sudanese, if they're this, if they're Muslim, I'm just gonna get it from left, right, and centre, or I'm gonna feel really, really shit that I have to now explain the actions of this one individual who's clearly deranged and just whatever. But yeah, I really feel for everyone and anyone who feels that fear that arises as a result of that.
And then in the meantime, you've got Tommy Robinson hanging around with, pedo apartheid, son of the richest man, father of the richest man in the world, who impregnated his own stepdaughter twice. And everyone's like, "Oh, what's that? I didn't hear what you said." It's just
in Moscow.
And so as not to end on a sad note, just finally, there's
Another
been
one.
lots of love in the chat for the format tonight. Lots of people saying they want to see more of this. Although
let's get some more by-elections.
Sort the tech issues first.
Yeah.
Well, we will have a by-election now because of the news that came out today. The Lib Dem MP, not going into details, but it's going to cause a by-election. So we'll probably have another one in the
by-election, plus the mayoral election
as well.
Yeah, there's going to be loads. And also, as Specs has pointed out in the chat, if you're a member of our Discord community, the conversation will continue. In the Discord afterwards, they have a voice chat where our community gather after the show. If you want to do that, you can. There's links in the comments. Lots of people have shared the links a number of times. So yeah.
Thanks, Callum. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining this evening. It's obviously everybody has really loved the format. Maybe it's something that we should try and do a little bit more often, and we do a bit more of a panel discussion about things, because we all have really great input and opinions and ideas, and it's also good that we don't all necessarily agree with each other all the time, and we challenge each other and our thoughts and opinions and stuff.
Internal turn left debates. Oh, that'd be funny.
That'd be good.
That's just us in the group chat though.
Yeah.
3-minute voice notes, left, right, and centre. Yeah. And it's not me, by the way.
Three 15-minute voice notes.
But obviously, as the guy said, there is a lot of heavy news and heavy stories out there at the minute. So make sure this weekend that you take some time for yourself and you look after yourself. And if you need to step away from the news, that is absolutely fine. I know we always talk about, it's really privileged to take a step away or to shut off, but I think you need to sometimes.
You do. I don't think it's a privileged thing, because look, you can't help other people unless you can take care of your mental health. So it's always good to step away, and especially algorithms and social media.
Yeah, no, definitely. But on that note, yes, thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you, as always, for your comments and your super chats. Remember, if you want us to grow, then head over to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. Thank you once again. We'll be back on Monday from 7:30 p.m. and bye for now.